NAFTA, our free trade agreement, instead of revitalizing Mexico, destroyed peasant agriculture and light and intermediate industry, unleashing, in my opinion and the opinions of others, one of the largest migrations in the world today. Look, the North American Free Trade Agreement opened Mexico inevitably to agricultural products from the United States. Agribusiness destroyed peasant agriculture. The idea was it would create other jobs for these people in industry. Well, it didn't. Like, there are now 400 maquiladoras, border factories in Juárez, but they pay a wage that no one cannot sustain a human being. Now, look, you make about 65 bucks a week in a maquiladora, say in Juárez, but the cost of living on the border in Mexico is 80 to 90% what it would be if you lived in the United States. So the thing doesn't work. Nobody will admit it doesn't work, and I'll tell you why, because free trade isn't an economic policy, really. It's a theology. It's impervious to any facts. It's never questioned empirically, does this work or doesn't it work? But here's what's happened. You go to the Midwest and other places, you see the absolute destruction of blue-collar jobs in this country. Then you see those same jobs reappear in Juárez and destroy Mexican families because of slave wages. Look at the global economy now, in essence, operates this way. Labor's trapped and capital moves. What we've gotten are steadily declining wages in real pesos, purchasing power. 2 or 3 generations of kids raised in poverty with absent parents working in the factory. And overlaying on this, the explosion of the drug industry. No one is really clear today how much of the Mexican economy is based on criminal enterprise, but it's huge. And the reason it's huge is the drug industry is learning, according to our agencies, $30 to $50 billion a year. And frankly, there's no way to get rid of that just on pretty women and hot cars and discotheques. The only place you can get rid of the money is in the legitimate economy, by buying it. Now, this has been going on year after year after year, so year after year after year. The presence of this money in the economy grows, it aggregates. It is the economy now. That's why the war on drugs in Mexican terms is preposterous. To ask Mexico to get out of the drug business is to essentially ask it to drop dead. At the moment, that's its source of money. What we're talking about is the access to foreign currency. And the 3 listed forms Mexico has traditionally gotten foreign currency is oil, remittances, and tourism. Drugs dwarf all of them. Drugs have gotten bigger than all of those things. It is the largest source of foreign money. If you shut down the drug industry in Mexico, you get almost a rigor mortis. I mean, this is the lubricant. And it's not just Mexico. There are serious articles you can find that during the global financial collapse of 2008, what kept the global banks going was drug money. And the reason the drug money mattered is it's all cash. It was the only liquid source left. One of the fallacies, the idiocy of the war on drugs is there's never been a successful government measure that can repeal a market economy. And that's why prohibition failed. Now, Calderon is a very devout Catholic, and he believes deeply in free trade. He belongs to a party there that would be like the Republican Party here. So he thinks he's giving shock therapy, essentially, to his own nation. I'm critical of using the military because it's always been corrupt and doesn't know how to police anyway. Armies only know how to destroy targets. The Mexican military has always been in the drug business. It's just a bunch of nonsense to say they're not corrupt. What has happened now, with 40,000 dead Mexicans, with 17 states, at least in Mexico, out of 30, full of extreme violence, is you can't unring the bell. That if the Mexican army goes back to its barracks, this violence will continue. Good God, you can't produce 8,000 slaughtered people in one city like Juarez and not have a bunch of people permanently damaged just because they become killing machines. Calderon's administration will end in a year in 2012. The next president is going to inherit a mess. And if he sends the army back to the barracks and announces a new policy, I don't think it'll easily end the violence. There are too many people in the country now living as outlaws. The Merida Plan doesn't work. It was an initiative started under President Bush to say, well, if you help us in the drug battle, our drug war, we'll give you $500 million a year, which we are. Actually, the Merida Plan is increasing, and now the U.S. government has just announced out of good heart we're going to expand it and give $300 million a year to murderous regimes in Central America to fight drugs. But the problem is we're arming a bunch of entities in these countries that slaughter people. It is not going to affect the drug business because the drug business is where the money is. Look, there is no solution to what we call the drug problem. Our policies are, at best, idiotic. Americans want to consume drugs. Nobody's going to stop them. And so any effort to continue this policy of solving what we call a drug problem, drug consumption, through making it criminal, will fail. It has failed for 40 years. We're 40 years into this official war. We spent $1 trillion, and drugs are more available than when we started, and they're in real dollars cheaper. Look at that. What we call illegal immigration is actually a policy favored by the Mexican government to exile its own citizens. 50% of the Mexican population lives outside the economy in real poverty, deep poverty. You take one of those people, let's say, for example, an Indian from Oaxaca. He illegally goes north. He makes it to Chicago. He's washing dishes. You suddenly transfer to people as if by magic, from somebody who can't even sustain himself in Mexico to somebody who's sending home to Mexico hundreds of dollars a month. He turns into a human ATM. Well, this has happened to millions of people as they've left Mexico. Americans are obsessed with illegal Mexican migration because it's the only real taste they get of the actual goddamn world. The world is full of people now moving because of collapsing economies and growing populations. If you go to Europe, there's a flotilla now of ships across the Mediterranean to stop people from trying to get in. This is happening all over the world. Our assumptions about a global economy and how it'll hum along have proven false. It isn't working out that way. And I think in that sense, the stresses will increase. Our solution is infantile. We've built an actual physical wall. It doesn't matter if you like Mexicans or dislike Mexicans. It doesn't matter if you want them to stay in their country or want them to come here. There's no way they can stay in their country. They're not going to stay there and die. There's going to be 150 million of them in 30, 40 years. The country can't sustain its current population of 110 million. So they are going to move. I don't get to decide that. I just have to live with that reality. Europe is going to be under siege. The rich nations of the world are all going to be under siege because people will try to escape into them to save their own lives. Mexicans have to fix Mexico. Americans can't. But what the Americans can do is stop policies that damage Mexico and make everything worse. Renegotiate NAFTA so it pays a living wage. Face the fact that we're going to have Mexican workers here and legalize them either as temporary workers or as people eligible for citizenship. We cannot run a country with a secret underclass. We cannot run a country where there's two types of human beings. We did it once. It caused a civil war, killed 600,000 people, and set back an entire region of our country, the South, for a century. Finally, end the war on drugs. There's no solution for Mexico or the United States by giving tens of billions of dollars a year to a criminal class. We can't stop people from using drugs. We let them have drugs, and we make it a medical issue. You know, just as we have with smoking, alcohol, et cetera. You know, we can live with drugs. We already are. They're everywhere anyway. Making drugs criminal has been a disaster. And any intelligent person, when they see something doesn't work, tries something else. You have to be on drugs to be in favor of the war on drugs. You can't be clean and actually think it's working.
Take these words home and think.